Hello and welcome to my channel. This is a quick video about the licensing regulations for radio transmission in the 868 ISM band, which is used for Meshtastic and Reticulum and so on. And it's very important that for the country you're in, you look up the regulations and make sure that you stay within them. Otherwise you can get yourself into big trouble. This document is for the UK. It comes from the current guardians of the airwaves called Ofcom. In the US, of course, there's the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, and every country's different. Germany's got its, Bundesnetzagentur, and they manage and regulate radio spectrum and sell off chunks, huge prices to mobile phone and such companies. Anyway, this is the 868 ISM, or Industrial, Scientific and Medical Band, and you need to know where things come from legally. I got this actually it took a long time to find it from the website of Ofcom. That's the Office of Communications in the UK, and it's about technical licensing conditions. The document is very helpfully named finalreport.pdf, and which doesn't tell you anything about what it's about, and it's got this front cover that says ovum, which to me means Easter egg or something. Anyway, whatever. It's the regulations for this ISM band of interest, and if we look at the diagram, I actually had to put this diagram into Google lens.google.com in order to lead me to that document, because it's the only way I could find it. I couldn't find it on the Ofcom website by searching with keywords. Anyway, this is the spectrum and how it's regulated. And here, this chunk here, is 250 kilohertz wide, and this is the frequency that's used for the digital radio modes I just mentioned. So it's from 869.4 to 869.65, so it is 250 kilohertz. Halfway through that is 125 kilohertz up from that, which is 869.525, which is the frequency that we choose for Meshtastic and so on. And in the UK at least, and I think this is Europe-wide because of ETSI regulations that apply to all of Europe, then the maximum EIRP is 0.5 watts or 500 milliwatts or 27 dBm, and that's effective isotropic radiated power. So if you've got an antenna with gain, then you have to be careful that the gain doesn't magnify the output power higher than this legal limit. And also, this has to be less than 10%. That's the duty cycle. This document mentions the 10% duty cycle a lot. It doesn't actually define what it means. I don't know if that's 10% in a day or 10% ever, or I just don't know. It's vague. If you look through the document a bit further, it also mentions that the duty cycle applies, except maybe in some of these uses, if you use a system of listen before talk, then you don't have to adhere to it. That's how I understood it. I'm not sure if I did understand it, so maybe somebody else knows better than me what that means, because I don't know. Let's somewhere, I'm just searching for the word duty and duty cycle. It does mention this, here we are, either a maximum duty cycle of 0.1% in a particular band of interest, or deployment of a listen before talk transmission protocol, which means you can then exceed the duty cycle limit, as I understand it. So I don't really quite know what they mean. Hopefully somebody does. Anyway, so this 10% needs to be implemented, the limit. And how are we going to do that? Looking in the manual for Reticulum, the Reticulum Network Stack, RNS, then it mentions down here, it took me a while to find this because they don't use the keywords duty cycle, they use airtime limit, of course. And you can set an airtime limit, which is measured in, or set in, percentage. And these are rolling times frames. So whether that's relevant to the Ofcom document I just showed you, I don't know how you could convert between the two. So there's a short time limit of in a rolling 15 seconds, and then the long time limit is in a rolling 60-minute window. So the 60-minute period rolls along, and at any time you shouldn't exceed, well, it won't exceed the percentage you set here, and this one is set to 1.5%. I've set mine to 10%, hoping that it's correct. There are various ways of doing this. If you look in the, if you use the RNS command and type RNS tap example config, it generates an example configuration for you where it shows what I thought was all of the options, but the one about the time usage limit is not actually in here, so it didn't help at all. You just have to copy and paste, put it into the config file yourself. Or I did notice a bit later on, not that one, that if you look at the Meshtastic program for Reticulum, then it's actually built into the interfaces settings. If you go into interfaces, and I'm using a rack radio node, and you go here on the three dots and edit interface, and then you go down to optional R-node interface settings, then you find the airtime limit, which is what they were talking about, and you can enter one. I didn't enter a short one because I'm not sure the implications of short or long one, so this is the rolling 1 hour limit, and I set it to 10. If you don't set it, it gives you this hint, enter airtime limit bracket seconds. So I think this is probably an error in the GUI. I don't think that means seconds. I hope it means percent. So I've set this to 10, hoping for 10%. But yeah, it does say seconds here, but I can check it because if I go and look at the config file I generated, where I put it in there, you can edit it. So this is my config file. This is actually on the air at the moment, right down the bottom of the interface settings. And when you in the GUI you set that limit, which is normally unset, then it puts this line at the end: airtime limit long equals 10. And I'm hoping that means 10%, not 10 seconds. And again, if you look in the manual, then it does say here, it's the same sentence that was in the config file. It does say that this is as a percentage. So here, specified in percent. So I assume it's correct. So I've now set it to 10%, and hopefully within the regulations for this transmission. Let's go back to the first picture because I like it. So this is the slot we're using, and I believe that I'm doing it legally, but it's worth checking in whatever country you're in because there will be different limits set here. I think in the US they don't have a 10% limit. I think it's unlimited, and the power level is probably also different. So you need to check these things before you just start transmitting and avoid getting into trouble. That's enough for now. Look forward to reading your comments and questions, and if anybody's got any more information about what 10% means, I'd be very interested to hear, and on your thoughts on these regulatory limits and how to adhere to them. So thank you for listening and watching, and see you in the next video.